gracious Father, as we study your word, open our hearts and minds to the lessons that you would have us learn today. In Jesus' name I pray this. Amen. Okay, I need a volunteer to read about 45 verses, or if we get two readers, we'll do about 22, 23 apiece.
Okay, we'll break that up. I'll read the first part.
Okay.
Okay, if I can see this, okay. And in the first year of Darius the Mede, I arose to be an encouragement and a protection of him. And now I will tell you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings are going to arise in Persia. Then a fourth will gain far more riches than all of them. As soon as he becomes strong through his riches, he will arouse the whole empire against the realm of Greece. And a mighty king will arise, and will rule with great authority, and do as he pleases. But as soon as he has arisen, his kingdom will be broken up and parceled out toward the 4 points of the compass, though not to his own descendants, nor according to his authority which he wielded, for his sovereignty will be uprooted and given to others besides them. Then the king of the south will grow strong, along with one of the princesses who will gain ascendancy over him and obtain dominion, and his domain will be a great dominion indeed. And after some years they will form an alliance, and the daughter of the king of the south will come to the king of the north to carry out a peaceful arrangement. But she will not retain her position of power, nor will he remain with his power, but she will be given up, along with those who brought her in, and the one who sired her, as well as he who supported her in those times. But one of the descendants of her line will arise in his place, and he will come against their army and enter the fortress of the king of the north, and he will deal with them and display great strength.
Okay, thank you. We'll get to the rest of it. There's some stuff here. We get the kingdom of the north and the kingdom of the south. What are we talking about? Any idea?
The Israelites of the south and all the other tribes of the north.
I'd almost said that's a good guess. But it's a guess.
Yes?
Yeah. Okay. Kingdom of the north is, okay. If we go to verse 3, mighty king with great authority and do as he pleases.
Is that Babylon?
No, that actually is Alexander. Okay? And his kingdom is going to be broken up and parceled out to his 4 generals, one of which is Ptolemy, which is P-O-T-E-M-E-Y. Okay? And the other king that they're talking about, the kingdom of the north, is Seleucid. Seleucid is basically Syria, modern day Syria. Think about that. Ptolemy is what you would consider modern day Egypt. And when they say north and south, it's relative to the Holy Land. So when they're saying they're going north and south, you've got Israel between these 2 great powers. Now, Missy, how old are you? Oh, awesome. Okay. Huh? Yeah. Now, how do we get 2 kingdoms to be nice, play nice with each other?
What it says there.
Yeah. You are about the age of Bernice. Let me tell you about Bernice. Bernice is the daughter of Egypt's Ptolemy II, who married Syria's King Antiochus. And now, that was what they hoped. Now, Antiochus, what does he have to do to marry Bernice? Played by Missy in this case. Got to divorce his current wife. All right? Ah, he dumped her. So he marries Bernice, and let's see here. Let's get up here. The wife, who has been divorced, ends up killing Bernice, Antiochus, and their kid. Poisoned them all. Yeah, and he thought modern day politics was brutal. Okay? So what would have happened is you would have been sent to faraway land, married to some old guy, and this was the way that they were going to have peace. Except that the wife, the former wife, was not too happy about that. Now, as a matter of fact, the former wife had a son, and they eventually put him on the throne. So, this is some of the background of what's going on here in Daniel 11. Let's get to the next part.
Okay. Also, their gods, with their metal images and their precious vessels of silver and gold, he will take into captivity to Egypt. And he, on the part, will refrain from attacking the king of the north for some years. Then the latter will enter the realm of the king of the south, but will return to his own land. And his sons will mobilize and assemble a multitude of great forces, and one of them will keep on coming and overflow the pass through which he may again wage war up to his very fortress. And the king of the south will be enraged and go forth and fight with the king of the north. Then the latter will rise, a great multitude, but that multitude will be given into the hand of the former. Then the multitude is carried away. His heart will be lifted up, and he will cause tens of thousands to fall, yet he will not prevail. For the king of the north will again raise a great multitude than the former, and after an interval of some years he will press on with a great army and much equipment. Now in those times many will rise up against the king of the south. The violent ones, along with people, will also lift themselves up in order to fulfill the vision, but they will fall down. Then the king of the north will come, cast up a siege mound, and capture a well-fortified city, and the forces of the south will not stand their ground, not even their choicest troops, for there will be no strength to make a stand.
Okay. Now, Lisa is dead. She's been poisoned by the jealous ex-wife, and now Aaron, her brother, is put on the throne. And he goes up and conquers Syria. Well, how do you get from Egypt to Syria? Bingo! So, oh, by the way, if you, Israel, oppose us, we're going to conquer you too. So you get this ebb and flow of people, of invading armies going back and forth through Israel. And so he eventually conquers Syria and takes all their stuff from their idols and carts it back to Egypt. Then, just when he thought it was all done, the guys in Syria, his sons, go, oh, hey, we can't let this stand. So there is a series of battles, wars between the two. And finally, when we see that the guy in the south has this, raises up this, or a great multitude, and goes and attacks. Now, generally, the guy with the most troops, there's an old adage that God favors bigger battalions. Not the case here. The multitude is roughly 75,000 men. And they lose to a smaller army. Question for all you biblical scholars. Where have we seen something like this before? And there are several correct answers.
One with Gideon.
Gideon.
Joshua on the wall.
Yeah, you could make a good argument for that, bud. I would consider that one of them. But Gideon was the one that I was thinking of, because you get, anybody remember?
300.
300. Oh, where have we heard that before?
Keep going down to the lake and how they drink.
That's right. 300 Spartans were that. They don't tell you about the 1,200, and I got to get this right, Thesbians, people from Thebes, that were there as well. All you hear about is the Spartans. They must have better PR. So Egyptians, they raised to 75,000, but their advantage is only short-lived. The North had greater leadership and were victorious. Now Gideon went up against the Amalekites and the Midianites. 300 men caused the armies of those two kingdoms to flee. Now, then it talks about a king will rise up in Syria. He's really, really rich, and he will plan a series of strikes. And at this point, the northern kingdom, the Syrians, actually conquer and occupy what they call the beautiful land, or what we would call Palestine. So this is what's going on behind the scenes when we see this. Okay. Any questions? Oh yeah, one other thing. Siege mounds. This is an ancient way of attacking a city. Might be called a siege ramp, but you get a bunch of people under cover and you start building up a berm against the city wall to allow your people to either attack it or to get up to the level to attack the guys that are manning the wall. So,
They can't build a burn very fast. I don't know how many guys you got.
siege warfare is not a short-term proposition. I believe, if I remember correctly, when the Romans besieged Masada, they were doing it for 5 years. Of course, the Romans took it to the next level. They killed everyone up there. You know, the modern day Israel, their special forces has a graduation ceremony at Masada. Men, women, children, dogs, cats, cows, anything else. If it was living up there, it got it.
They breathe and die.
Man's been doing that to man since the beginning of time. Huh? It is. One that we have been unable to break. Okay. So, another reader?
comes against him will do as he pleases, and no one will be able to withstand him. He will also stay for a time in the beautiful land with destruction in his hand. He will set his face to come with the power of his whole kingdom, bringing with him a proposal of peace which he will put into effect. He will also give him the daughter of women to ruin it, but she will not take a stand for him or be on his side. Then he will turn his face to the coastlines and capture many, but a commander will put a stop to his scorn against him. Moreover, he will repay him for his scorn. So he will turn his face towards the fortresses of his own land, but he will stumble and fall and be found no more. Then in his place one will arise who will send an oppressor through the jewel of his kingdom, yet within a few days he will be shattered, though neither in anger nor in battle, and in his place a despicable person will arise, on whom the honor of kingship has not been conferred. But he will come in a time of tranquility and seize the kingdom by injury, and the overflowing forces will be flooded away before him and shattered, and also the prince of the covenant. And after an alliance is made with him, he will practice deception, and he will go up and gain power with a small force of people. In a time of tranquility, he will enter the richest parts of the realm, and he will accomplish what his fathers never did, nor his ancestors. He will distribute plunder, booty, and possessions among them, and he will devise his schemes against strongholds, but only for a time.
Okay, so just prior to this, we're talking about the siege mount, and that is the enemy was attacked and conquered a number of fortified cities. Fortified cities, we build a wall, keep the bad guys out. Remember from our study of Ezekiel, what was the most important guy on the wall? Watchmen, absolutely. Hey, the guys, they're coming. You know, get ready. And if he didn't watch, they took care of it. Almost wish that would happen to. Never mind. So we see this ebb and flow between Syria and Egypt. And then all of a sudden we get this other guy that comes in who seizes the kingdom by intrigue, not part of the Seleucid or Ptolemy lines. And so Israel during this time is trying to keep their head down. They're trying to stay out of these two warring kingdoms, and they did a relatively good job at it until the one of the last invasions, and the army just decided, you know, it's too much of a pain. We're just going to occupy you guys and be done with it. But again, what's driving this? First of all, we have from the Seleucid side, we have jealousy. The divorced wife poisons the king, the former husband, his new wife, and their kid. Because she was cast aside. Now her son is placed on the throne, so we got power coming into being part of the reason for all of this deception, and we find out that, oh, look at all these riches that we get. Why was occupying Palestine or Israel such a good deal?
Because it had a lot of resources, a lot of stuff to get to increase the guys as well.
They had some, but not as much as either Syria or Egypt. But what they did control was the caravan routes.
Oh,
everything coming from what we would call today the Middle East to Africa came through there. Same thing with Central Asia or Turkey.
Yeah.
Comes through there. You control that. Guess what you get to do? You get to tax these guys or
Collect
tariff.
the taxes.
Huh?
Collect the taxes.
Collect the taxes. And as long as you're an occupying power and keep the caravan route safe, are the merchants going to be happy to pay you those taxes?
Yes and no. I wanna pay it-
Spoken like a true businessman.
I want to pay it to keep saving, but I don't want to pay it.
Yet. So.
I'll keep going.
Okay.
And he will stir up his strength and courage against the king of the south with a large army. So the king of the south will mobilize an extremely large and mighty army for war, but he will not stand, for schemes will be devised against him. And those,
Bless you.
and those who hate his choice food will destroy him, and his army will overflow, but many will fall down slain. As for both kings, their hearts will be intent on evil, and they will speak lies to each other at the same table, but it will not succeed. For the end is still to come at the appointed time. Then he will return to his land with much plunder, but his heart will be set against the Holy Covenant, and he will take action and then return to his own land. At the appointed time he will return and come into the south, but this last time it will not turn out the way it did before. For ships of the kingdom will come against him, therefore he will be disheartened and will return and become enraged at the Holy Covenant and take action. So he will come back and show regard for those who forsake the Holy Covenant. And forces from him will arise, desecrate the sanctuary fortress, and do away with the regular sacrifice. And they will set up the abomination of desolation. And by smooth words he will return to godlessness those who act wickedly towards the covenant, but the people who know their God will display strength and take action. And those who have insight among the people will be to the many, yet they will fall by sword and by flame, by captivity and by plunder, for many days. Now when they fall, they will be granted a little help, and many will join with them in hypocrisy.
Okay. Money, power, greed, women, all things that kings have desired. We have David and Bathsheba. We have Paris and Helen. And there are countless examples of wars fought for money or power or land. But what evil, in verse 27, could we be talking about here?
Well, I imagine like the godlessness mentioned later.
Mm-hmm. But what, you're a king. Okay, we have King Andrew the First of the Middle East. Okay. What do you want?
Everything.
He's got everything. Wants more. So how does he get more? Take it? What about your people? People that are under him right now. He doesn't care, but he wants to boost his ego. So what does he do? We erect a statue to King Andrew I. Bow down. He is a god. The guys, the Ptolemies in Egypt, what was the Pharaoh but a descendant of the sun god? That was their belief system. So, Andrew's going to erect a statue of himself and everyone bow down. We saw this in Babylon with Ezekiel. We see this earlier in Daniel. Bow down to, those Jewish guys, they're not doing that. What's wrong with this?
Throw them in fire.
Throw them in the fire. Didn't work out so well for the several guys that had to throw them in the fire, but what does this tell us? These guys are intent on evil. They're saying, oh, you know, we're occupying you in Palestine. You can't worship. You can't go to Peace Lutheran Church. You can't take communion. And oh, by the way, we're going to, we're going to break into things. We're going to break all the windows. We're going to take all the Bibles and hymnals, and we're going to burn them. And we're going to turn this into an abortion clinic. That's the kind of desecration that these guys are talking about. Everything that is abhorrent to the Jews is being foisted upon them. But there's one thing in here that says the end is still to come at the appointed time. God's still in charge, even though it doesn't seem like it. God was still in charge in the Second World War. God is still in charge during the Cuban Missile Crisis. I know this. Trust me on this one. We thought we were all going to get nuked. God was still in charge through famines. God was still in charge. Political upheavals. God is still in charge today.
Always have and always will be.
Absolutely. But what is the one thing that we forget? We forget that. And we think that we have to do something. God needs help. So we're going to help him. We're not going to rely on him. Huh?
We have to keep supporting God. We have to keep getting people to be believers. If we don't, then it all goes down here.
Yep. There was a news clip about a year and a half ago. A number of Coptic Christians, women, were taken by ISIS.
Yes.
You talk about a witness. Before she was beheaded, one of the gals said, "I forgive you," to the guy that was going to behead her. I hope I have that kind of faith at that kind of time. She forgave him. Okay. Andrew, would you kindly continue?
For sure. And some of those who have insight will fall in order to refine, purge, and make them pure, until the end time, because it is still to come at the appointed time. Then the king will do as he pleases, and he will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and he will speak monstrous things against the God of gods, and he will prosper until the indignation is finished, for that which is decreed will be done. And he will show no regard for the gods of his fathers, or for the desire of women, nor will he regard for any other god, for he will magnify himself above them all. But instead he will honor a God of fortresses, a God whom his fathers did not know. He will honor him with gold, silver, costly stones, and treasures. And he will take action against the strongest of fortresses with the help of the foreign god. He will give great honor to those who acknowledge him, and he will cause them to rule over the many, and will parcel out land for a price. And at the end time, the king of the south will collide with him, and the king of the north will storm against him with chariots, with horsemen, and with many ships, and he will enter countries, overflow them, and pass through. He will also enter the beautiful land, and many countries will fall, but these will be rescued out of his hand: Edom, Moab, and foremost of the sons of Ammon. Then he will stretch out his hand against other countries, and the land of Egypt will not escape. But he will gain control over his hidden treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. Libyans and Ethiopians will follow at his heels.
Okay. throughout history and to the end of time, we will have kings and presidents and prime ministers and dictators that do monstrous things, say monstrous things. How do we get through it?
Have faith in God.
What is-
God is in charge whether you think so or not.
What does that mean? How does that look? You're not wrong, but how does that look?
Well, to the other people, it's terrible, it's crazy.
God is too patient. We is too patient for us.
That's a good thing, right?
For patient,
You know, I wish you would do something for me. Faster.
your time's coming.
You know, faster. And I see on the news, they're parading around with all the millions of soldiers and the weapons in China and Russia. There was in Europe also. And then God would just come and cross the gate. You'll shut through the gate. All the weapons they have, and then the people suffer, starving and doing all those terrible parades. It makes me sick when I see that. They're awful.
You lived through a pretty awful time.
Yes, I did. And to me, they come down. We would like to get it down, but he is too patient. He should do it faster before so many people get killed.
I'm glad he's patient.
And at least, look how many people get, special women and children. They all can, they suffer.
He's patient with us.
Oh, yes.
If he wasn't so patient, I'm not so sure we would be all that good of a position. He was patient with us even when we were in rebellion against him. He sent his son in our place. Oh.
I didn't do anything wrong.
Huh?
I didn't do anything wrong. I was just a child.
That is, yeah. I was following the popular opinion of the time. That's what everybody said. The Jews were called to be different. Their dietary laws, their worship laws. We are called to be different. We are to be witnesses of God's love out in the world. Even to people who are unlovable. That's tough, being a Christian. It's not easy, it's not for the weak.
But we have made here as far as America, but the other countries, being Christians, have a tough time.
Yep, there have been no Christians executed in the United States for being Christian.
That's right. All the other countries,
There are virtually a lot of other countries cannot make that same claim. Yeah, we have it relatively easy. Now, one of the things that, hopefully I made this point in the sermon today, is the old Mosaic covenant was for evangelism, as is the gospel for evangelism. What are we tasked as followers of Christ to do?
spread the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. How have we done?
Poorly.
So God says, okay, I'm going to be patient with you guys in the United States who like to sit back and take it easy. Instead of you going to some foreign land, I'm going to bring the foreign land to you. What, God? What are you doing? Wait a minute. We think you need some help. Let us tell you how this really should go. A little different connotation on it, isn't it? It isn't easy.
How many countries are free like we are?
To varying degrees, maybe 50-ish.
50?
Yeah. Figure Eastern Europe and Western Europe.
Northern Europe is.
Well, yeah, Norway, yeah, I'm considering that, yeah, Norway, Finland, and that. You get into South Asia, Central Asia, no. South Asia, no. Asia proper, probably Japan. And South and Central America, as far as religion, the government doesn't do anything, but there are other people who will. So I'd say 50-ish would be my guess. But, you know, if somebody said, well, you know, it's only 30. Okay, I'd go with that.
But there are still countries that believe Christ is the answer. There's countries that don't even know Christ.
The vast majority of the world does not know the gospel of Jesus Christ.
That's why we're going to keep the missionaries going.
You probably saw it when you were over in New Guinea. I know John Davies saw it when in the, 40-some, 50-some years he was doing that. You know, he's got a boatload of schools, and what they teach is the Bible. Here's how to read. Well, you know, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Well, teacher, what does that mean? Huh? Mm-hmm. But this is what the Israelites were facing. Taken over by country after country, being the sort of the whipping boy, if you will, and being, you know, cast aside, and the way that they wanted to worship, the way they were taught to worship, in many cases was interfered with. And they weren't allowed to do it. Now, heap on top of that, they decided to join in with the festivities. So we have quite a bit of falling off the wagon, falling away from the true God. That's why the northern tribes ended up in Assyria. That's why the southern two tribes ended up in Babylon. And that's why, you know, we see in the book of Daniel, we see the guys who are faithful are held out as examples. It started with, we're not going to eat the king's food. Then it's, oh, we're not going to worship the golden statue you put out on the plain. And now that the Babylonians have been cast aside and the Medo-Persians have taken over, it's not too long where the Israelites are going to be allowed to go back to the homeland, rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, and rebuild the temple. Bottom line, God's still in charge. God's still following his plan. No matter how we try to mess it up, God puts us back on the path. Okay, that's it for chapter 11. Next week, chapter 12. The week after, Revelation.
Revelation. What is the revelation?
The revelation.